Okay, Mr. LaFond, we got that goony looking asshole out of here. He's not here now. So I want to ask you, why is the Anglosphere, right? Because listen, when we're talking about America, the UK, Canada, all these fucking places, we're all the same, like, people at this point. We're all controlled by this, the global American empire. Right? So why are they so down on boxing in terms of or self defense as you use it? Why do you think that was, or at least it was like that? Now, I mean, shit. They're not for anything. It seems like it's for absolutely nothing but people like having sex with each other if they're the same sex or something. I don't know.
Well, I could start out by giving you an antidote.
Okay.
I used to stay up late night and watch late night TV on Friday night, wait for my dad to come home from his long distance sales job. He drove all over the Appalachians selling tractor trailer training. And a very enterprising Korean man by the name of Junri, whose top black belt eventually ended up kicking me in the ribs and shaving off my floating rib.
Ooh.
A guy named Ed Jones. He was a PKA fighter, total stud. I think he got knocked out in one of his fights. But anyhow, he was a karate instructor that I eventually ended up sparring with. Jun Ree would always have these commercials where there would be this like kind of effeminate looking man walking with this really good looking model quality chick. And then two dudes that look like you, like these beefy
Oh
Italian guys.
no,
Like, yeah,
I
too
don't
much
look
like,
that way.
garlic eating Neanderthal
Oh
DNA. They would come out of nowhere to mug this dude.
yeah.
And then the chick would just like kick them both with a round kick and like knock them out.
That's right.
And then they would just continue along their way. And then there would be a picture of the black belts doing a nunchaka kata.
Oh.
Okay, and they would do a nice pose, these three black belts, and then this little boy would say, "I Jun Ree, nobody bother me."
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, "Oh, that's really cool," because I got beat up and picked on all the time. I'd like to be able to do that, but that was my disposable income was $2 a week for my lunch money. So even at that, I wouldn't have been able to buy a uniform or sign up or
Right.
anything. My parents wanted me, the police would always protect you, so I had no responsibility for protecting myself. That was
Right.
absurd.
Right.
So my parents wanted me like playing baseball, basketball, football, and everything. Well, my cousin Fred, him and I are good friends now. He's 5 years older than me. He kept throwing me in to the water in Ocean City. I'm swallowing sand and salt and everything. I mean, this guy, nobody cared. This guy would just take me aside and beat me up and put me in wrestling holds for like 10 years, the first 10 years of my life, and I'm like just crawling out of the surf every couple seconds. I finally get a breath of air, and I'm a 11-year-old kid. He's 16-year-old man. He's picked me up and he's thrown me back in.
Yeah,
Eventually,
adults.
he got bored.
Yeah, adults used to beat you up back then.
So I was like, wow, this really sucks. I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to be just like constantly beat up by everybody. And we came home from the ocean, and my mother was in the process of worshiping Muhammad Ali,
Oh.
which was everybody in my mother's generation thought Muhammad Ali was the greatest man ever birthed by planet
Right.
Earth. And I think he was boxing some short, dumpy guy that didn't have a chance. And he was making fun of him, and I was not interested in that. But on the undercard, there was this little scruffy-looking Panamanian guy named Roberto Duran,
Oh.
who was the lightweight champion of the world, who was matched up with a man who had never been knocked out. Duran went out there in 17 seconds, hit him with a shovel hook to the liver. They took this guy out on a stretcher. And in the interview, Duran said, "Next time, the morgue." Like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Freddie's not going to take my Matchbox cards if I can do that.
Hands of
right?
stone.
So that was where I decided that, like, yeah, this is real. That guy really knocked this dude out. And then when I said I wanted to box, my entire family was marshaled to talk me out of it and tell me that white people can't box because it's not possible. White people are completely inferior human beings. And I even talked to my pediatrician. I was sent to talk to Dr. Young, who was a pediatrician, had an office on Stevenson Lane in Towson, and he explained to me why it was impossible for a man of European descent to box. That it couldn't be done. That just like Africans were just like totally superior, and this was an African sport, and I should be able to go to college, and it would be terrible for me to waste my brain in this thing. So I was like, okay, yeah, I guess I'm not allowed to box. And I start reading about boxing, and then I find out that it was invented by guys that looked like me a couple hundred years earlier in Great Britain.
Oh.
And now it was supposedly something that no man that was not from Africa could ever possibly do.
I thought Wakanda invented that. Right.
So,
Yeah, it's pretty. Your lifetime, my lifetime's been a lot of nonsense, and now we're seeing the results of it. So, yeah, it's cool.
as a writer, getting into writing fiction plots and dealing with heroism on different levels, and going back and looking at movies that I watched when I was a kid and that my parents were raised on too. For instance, these were the same people that told me that salt is poison. Eating salt will kill you. Well, I did note that animals will die if they don't have salt. They would travel halfway across the United States to Kentucky to lick on some salt. And then, taking their dietary advice, I became a really bloated, fat individual.
Oh.
And then I ran to Rick again, and among other things, Rick told me that salt is good. I should eat salt. And eating salt, I have lost 60 pounds. See? So that's another lie. It's another lie that people told you to keep you on.
Hypertension.
So now I eat salt. And I don't have one of those blood pressure machines, so I have no blood pressure, so it's not something to worry about.
That's right.
But
remember, if you don't test it, you don't have it. You get what I'm saying?
What's very interesting, and what I've found out, I've written books on martial arts, and I've dealt a lot. It was kind of weird. My self-defense journey, I was involved in boxing to learn how to defend myself, knowing that I didn't have the athletic ability to be a competitive boxer. And I ended up becoming of great value to Asian-based martial artists who wanted to have some boxing training. And they were coming from the perspective I was. I just don't want to get beat up as much, okay? So how can we use boxing for that, just like how they use karate for that? But so one thing, the structure of Asian-based martial arts training is, I found out, it's based on European military drill with a rifle. It was something that the Asians did to sell this stuff to Europeans. And it was an adoption of some kind of pugilistic traditions that they had to European military drill. So a lot of the complaints that somebody coming from boxing would have about an Asian-based martial art that came from a form segment is kind of weird, because the idea of the form as it exists, the kata, it pretty much comes from the European military drill that was inculcated in Japan in the late 1800s. So that was fascinating, and it leads us to a skill-based interpretation of defense, which is also, that's not Asian. That is quintessentially Anglo and industrial. This you could see this in every Western, where the hero is not called brave. The hero is good. He's highly skilled. Oh, he's really good. I mean, this is in almost every Western. He's really good. He's quicker with the gun. He's a better shot. He's better at doing like these small motor skills in a high-stress situation. It comes from gun culture, our reticence to be involved in any type of concussive self-defense really comes from something that's highly valued in gun culture, because you want to be calm, cool, very precise, very good. Using your fingers, you wouldn't want to blow them up and hit somebody with it when you've got your like $20,000 sniper rifle that you now have to go use. So it's not an Asian-based thing. It's an Anglo-industrial thing that's inculcated in the translation of Asian-based martial arts in America and England. To this day, there will be more Shotokan practitioners in the United Kingdom than boxers, birthplace of modern boxing. There will be more Taekwondo practitioners or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners in the United States than all of the boxers.
Let me tell you something, man. Somebody comes up to me, I'm American. I take my gun and I'll take care of that. You know, and that's how you guys with your little throwing hands. You know, good luck to you.
It's true. It's true. I mean, it's the gun. I guess the gun is definitely the way to go.
That's the way to go, especially if you end up defending yourself against the wrong person, then we'll get to see you on the news for weeks and months. So.
So the
hey, you wanted to get your name in the lights, right? You're American, you want to be famous. Make you famous.
A final note, I'd say, if you wanted to study boxing's utility for self-defense, you look at a boxing match in 5-second segments. You wait for one of the boxers to get hurt or to get compromised, get caught with a punch, and then you see how he gets out of it.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the self-defense drill, and that 5 seconds, that's about how long a normal self-defense situation is. You know, so the boxing was, kind of like a way that you could duel with your fists and not kill each other. Right. That became a sport. So, and the merchant class hated boxing from the very beginning. To a large extent, Anglosphere police forces had their origin in keeping poor boxers and rich gamblers from getting together at boxing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
Okay, because the merchant class didn't want to have any masculine culture. No. And he didn't want the disenfranchised former rich dudes that were military officers and the guys that got kicked off of the common lands and could no longer make a living on common lands. When these guys got sandwiched in the cities, the merchants didn't want the old aristocrats and the young thugs having anything in common.
Remember.
So the police were actually kind of instituted by the merchant class to make sure that didn't happen.
Remember, back to blue, right? Back to blue. These colors don't run unless you're in a building and kids are getting shot and you're out there for a fucking hour. All right, let me stop.